Good evening and welcome. I'm going to call our meeting to order at this time, and I'd like to welcome everyone to our August 27th regular board meeting. A special thank you to each and every person who's in attendance tonight. It's always nice to have a full house. And Ms. LaVentus Wells, do you have some special guests that you would like to introduce tonight for us?
We have so many, I don't even know where to begin.
Okay.
And we have great future leaders here for teachers, and we always need great teachers, and we know your advisor is one of the best mentors that you could ask for, and you could always ask any of us if y'all ever need anything. Can you tell me what schools y'all are from? Very nice. Well, of course. Why would I think differently? So thank y'all for being here. And then we have our pink ladies, and they're teachers and student, and they are phenomenal. And who is our young man? I did not meet him. Jonah, you look so nice. You look very businesslike, very impressive. You're styling and profiling, and you're going to be a great leader. So thank you. And then we have a lot of people representing a lot of different organizations, and everybody's going to get to say a few words at their leisure, and especially when they're called up to the front. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LaVentus Wells. Just, I would like all of our teachers in the audience just to raise their hand. I'd like for us to recognize you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for being here. And I know we also have a few district administrators. If you're a district administrator, please raise your hand and let us recognize you. Thank you so much. So glad you're here. I would like to inform our audience that our board just left executive session to discuss personnel matters, homeschooling applications, physical education exemptions, property acquisition for Northwest Middle School replacement, selection of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineering firms to provide professional service, and selection of electrical engineering firms to provide professional services, and to receive legal advice on a Title IX update. Our first item on the agenda is the welcome, the prayer, and the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone would please stand for the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ms. Middleton, our board secretary, will lead us in the prayer at this time. Ms. Middleton.
Thank you. Dear God, guide us tonight as we launch the 2024-2025 school year. Be with us as we discuss matters so important to our children, our schools, and our community. Help us to have clarity to address and improve the matters before us. Help us to be wise in the decisions we make for the good of all those who have placed their trust and confidence in our leadership. Amen.
Thank you so much, Ms. Middleton. Please remain standing. At this time, I would like to introduce a special guest. Her name is Caroline Courier, and she is a student at Mountain View Elementary in my attendance area. And Caroline, it is so nice to have you here tonight, and I'd like to just share a few things about you with the audience. Tonight we have Caroline Courier to lead us in the pledge. She is an outstanding 5th grade student at Mountain View Elementary School. She is involved in many activities, and some of her favorites include the Mountain View News Show, the Safety Patrol, and the Challenge Program. And in her free time, Carolyn participates in competitive dance and basketball. She is accompanied tonight by her principal, a good friend of mine, Miss Jennifer Gibson, and also by her parents, and her mom is a teacher at Mountain View, Scott and Darlene Courier. She also has a little sister back there. She's kind of short, but she's beautiful, and she is also here. And everyone is so proud of you, Caroline. Thank you, and you may lead us in the pledge at this time.
Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Caroline, and thank you so much for being here, and thank you for being a difference maker at Mountain View Elementary School. Our second matter of business is item 1.02, Boardmanship Institute recognitions. And I'm going to ask Mrs. Morrison Fair, who is our South Carolina School Board Association Board Representative, to join me at the podium as we recognize several of our board members. Ms. Morrison Fair, if you'd come on. We have several members who have reached different levels of training, and certainly that requires time and interest in learning how to be more effective, how to be a better board member, how to better serve our communities. And so you'll hear different levels tonight, and you move up the levels. The more training you get, the higher you climb the levels. We have one member tonight that has reached the first level, and she gets a special certificate, and that's Miss Sarah Doolin. If we'll give Sarah a hand. Sarah, if you'll come down, let's get our picture together. We also have two other members who have reached level 2. At this time, I'd like Dr. Presley, if she would come down. And when you reach level 2, you also get a pin, and I will ask Ms. Morrison Fair to pin that on. We'll get our picture first. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, here we go. Okay, a little higher. Okay, here we go. Nice. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dr. Presley. We have a second member again at level 2, and that is Miss Anne Marie Middleton, our secretary. Miss Middleton, come on down.
Up high. Here we go. Thank you.
Let's congratulate Miss Middleton. I would also like to recognize at this time, we have several board members, even though they are not receiving certificates tonight, they have reached really high levels in their boardsmanship. And I'd just like to recognize each of them, and we'll hold our applause to the end as I call their names. Reaching level 4, Miss Goodwin Caldwell. Reaching level 6, Mrs. Bush, Miss Leventis Wells, Miss Morrison Fair, and Mr. Sailors. Please join me in congratulating these members. Thank you. We would also like to recognize Mrs. Bush tonight. As you know, she always brings cheer to the boardroom with our beautiful fall moms. Thank you so much, Miss Bush. You're so kind.
Just a little tease for fall, just a little tease for some cooler weather.
Thank you. I think we're all excited about fall, and it's just around the corner. Our next matter of business is the adoption of the consent calendar. The consent calendar includes items 2.01 through 2.04. We have a recommended motion from the administration. Do I have a maker of the motion?
And to accept.
Ms. Leventis Wells has made a motion. Ms. Doolin has made a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our third agenda item is appearance of visitors. And tonight we have 13 visitors. And I'm going to ask our Vice Chair, Ms. Mosley, if she will read the speaking guidelines at this time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stiles. As each speaker's name is called, he or she should proceed to the podium at the end of the board's dais, where there is a microphone and light system. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak to the board. The light system will be green for the first 2 minutes and will turn yellow when 1 minute remains on the speaker's allotted time. In keeping with board policy KCA, abusive language or personal attacks aimed at students or staff members will not be permitted. All speakers are expected to behave in an orderly and respectful manner. The board will not engage in discussion with the speaker or respond to comments, and the superintendent will designate a member of the staff to respond to each speaker in an appropriate and timely manner.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mosley. Our first speaker tonight is Dylan Flips.
Hi. Can I have a show of hands for who in this room has read the Bible? Fantastic, me too, and we're going to get back to that. My name is Dylan Flipsy. I am the father of 2 girls in the district. I'm a board-certified emergency physician. I'm an inventor and a small business owner. I have experience in home construction, food service, publication, and professional photography. I am the proud product of public education, and what public education couldn't get from me, I got from reading everything I could get my hands on. I'm here to speak in favor of books and in favor of teachers. The new uniform procedure for selection or reconsideration of instructional materials is an unfunded mandate handed down from the state government that has no benign intent. It is a naked attempt to reduce our children's access to information about the world. It is the product of having zero trust in the teachers in our communities and zero ability to tolerate our kids even learning about something uncomfortable or different. So who's read Fahrenheit 451? How about 1984 or A Handmaid's Tale? Matilda? Not a big reader? How about the Indiana Jones movie where there's guys burning books? None of our great fiction has good guys who are restricting access to information. The Bible story in Jeremiah 36 is about a king burning a book. He's not the good guy if you haven't read that one. I am standing right now in the state ranked charitably 40th in student reading. That is the best ranking you can find if you look around. It's hard to get kids excited, and teachers need every tool possible. They don't need to be looking over their shoulders or self-censoring. As a district, we don't need to self-censor something as benign as the Scholastic Book Fair. Come on, let the advocates of censorship bring their challenges, and let's laugh them out of the room, because we're rational people. Let the teachers fill their shelves and protect them. Let the kids learn as much as they can about as many things as they can. You said we need good teachers. Well, I've considered a 4th or 5th career as a science teacher or a shop teacher, maybe. Who knows? But an environment where teachers are required to provide a list of every document in their classroom and lessons on demand, who on earth are you going to recruit? So I know real history too, not just fiction. Do we need to list off who historically has restricted access to information? Were any of them good guys? Did any of their ideas win? No one in this room is going to have a biography written about them. Our life stories are going to be told to ourselves and by the people around us. Who's going to be proud to say they spent their time with power, taking books away from other people's children? Let's agree to support our teachers and the students. Let's resist the new regulations. Now this printout, this is meek. If you are a true representative, then you speak out when something's wrong. You resign your board seat, your precious board seat for your 6 years if something is so unjust. And there are plenty of school districts that are not pursuing this course. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Noelle Norfolk, excuse me.
Hi, good evening. My name is Noelle Norfolk, and I'm speaking on behalf of Greenville. book fairs in general and books. And I did not come from the public school system. I was not a product of the public school system. I came from a private, tiny, fundamental Christian school, and I didn't have a library. Like, I want you to know that when I walk by, or drive by your buildings that have these giant glass walls with these beautiful books in them, I can't tell you how jealous me as a person, as a child, as a student, is so jealous of what you have here and how it needs to be protected. And it's super important, not just for, it's important for every child in this school district. And book fairs are one of those few places where not just, kids who are interested in reading go, there were all kids can go, and find something that they might be interested in. And it's not, just, it's one of the few events that adults are excited about. I love to see your book fairs. I love to get the flyers. I love it when my child comes home with a book and is excited about reading, and I don't care what she brought home. If she brought me the Anarchist Cookbook, I would be thrilled, okay? It is insane to me that we are canceling a book fair, especially for elementary. I have never seen a flyer come in or walked through a book fair for a 5th grader and seen anything that I would consider inappropriate or questionable. They're just places of joy. And not only that, they're one of the few events that is also funds libraries, and it funds and it supports librarians, and it supports education. It supports reading. We need readers. We need thinkers. And, I want you to know that this is my child's librarian. This is who my child's librarian is to her. She chose to make this portrait of her librarian because this is a person of importance to her. This is a person of love. This is a person who sees her as an individual, and these are the people we need who guide our children when they go to read, when they want to learn something to read or want to find something to read. They know your children, and they know how to find a book that's going to encourage them to read. And this is one of the most important things that you can have in an education system. And I just really appreciate you listening to me for these 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Matthew Casasus, and I've taught as an instructor of sociology at Greenville Technical College for the past 12 years. And I'm also the parent of 2 high school children who I've enthusiastically sent to many book fairs previously, excited to carry on that tradition that I hold in very high regard. As a result, as a college professor, I usually speak at about 80 minutes at a turn, but we're going to try and keep it a little lighter for everyone's sanity. In my college classrooms at Greenville Tech, where I teach sociology mostly, but also leadership, I find it's incredibly important not just for me to talk to the students, but for them to speak with each other. I gain so much more by hearing from students, from their experiences. And thanks to Greenville Tech's very grown dual enrollment program. We have both high school students and college students, non-traditional students, all mixing together, sharing their ideas and thoughts about faith, disability, gender identity, race, ethnicity, all these experiences together. And I really think that a lot of this begins with developing a love of learning and finding out other people's stories. And for me, I really want to just ask us to think how we can find a speedy resolution to this issue. I recognize that these regulations aren't something that we all are deeply in love with. We're trying to protect our educators, and I'm one of the ones possibly on the front line, depending how this all shakes out. But I know that my discussions with students are much richer for it when our students grow up with other people's stories, when they can discover the stories that interest them, when they aren't necessarily just handed a book that says, you must read this and report back to us what we want to know, but step into that person's shoes, discover who they are, find out what that means to you, and if you can disagree, then let's have that conversation, especially at a college level. We get so much more from each other at that level. Not only from my students, but from my boys as well. In high school now, I want to make sure that they're empathetic young men who are going to be leaders in the future. And on behalf of all the future students who will be coming into my classroom, hopefully in the next few years or decades, let's just do what we can to continue to support book fairs, to find ways that we don't fall into the temptation to lean on restrictions out of fear or anxiety that someone will come after us for it, because I think that all of us as educators and as professionals deserve to be the ones to kind of be that safeguard for a better future for our students. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Terrell Brown. Terrell Brown is our next speaker.
How you doing? Good evening, everyone. I mean, I know I'm a familiar face, but this is not what you think it is. First, I had a speech written on July 31st, but it changed a little bit. Found out a couple weeks ago that Area 19 is not going to have the representative this time, next couple of weeks. I want to take the time out to thank her for her service. She was a representative for my school, Cherrydale Elementary School, part of the time. I was nervous. I was scared to talk to her because I'm like, oh, I can get in trouble. But having to get the chance to know, I think she was one of the sweetest person you ever could meet. One of the stories that I have personally with her is because I decided to elope. So I went to her place of business and got a flower, took it to the house, and she said yes. And the other couple weeks ago, she finally met you, but I'm like, this is the woman who got your flowers from. She's like, oh my goodness. So thank you. You're going to be missed. I know I can't say your name, but the Brown family really loves you. Next, I know a couple of days ago that you all mentioned during the community of the whole that people had smiles on their face. Unfortunately, I could not come to one of the meetings after the raises were done, but many people are very pleased with the raises. As I walked in the building, I know I was on TV the next day. Many knew my face and were just telling me how much they appreciate the thought that people watched out for them because they felt really, really appreciated by the work that they did in the 2020, being essential workers and things like that, and they really, really appreciate that. Thank you once again for the raises because it really is a morale booster. Right now it's a very stressful time, but part of the thing that really kind of made people very joyous was the raise. On July 30th, we had an event at local Q to kind of give a morale boost to a lot of teachers, like a little pep rally. And I want to take the time out to thank several of the board members. If they did not come, they sent me messages. They also sent me nice words of encouragement throughout. A couple of the people came by and they gave words of encouragement and people were surprised. But those words of encouragement meant a lot. I'm not gonna call out names because I don't want to get called out by somebody, but they did a really good job and I really appreciated that. A lot of the elected officials came out also and showed their appreciation also. So once again, as I travel this country, I always could keep you all in my thoughts and my prayers, because talking to other people from other parts of the world in this country, we really have a great school district. We also have a great school board. Keep up the great work. You know I'm gonna keep talking trash to other people at these other counties, because I let them know Greenville County is the best. Keep up the great work, y'all. Keep up the things you all doing, because as we travel around this country, we set ourselves apart from the best. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sarah Frick.
Hello, I'm Sarah Frick. I am a professor of mathematics at Furman University. I have 3 children in the Greenville County Schools. I am a member of the School Improvement Council. I am a member of the PTA board, and I am a Lego League coach. I am going to be the math counts coach this year at my kids' school. I am very invested in the education here in Greenville County. And I just want you to know, when we have these ideas of these book bans, today was also the first day of class at Furman, so my words are not as polished as I would like them to be. This is a little bit more ad lib. But taking away the book fairs is the wrong way to go. But I understand that you're trying to protect yourself from really horrible, horrible legislation. Horrible legislation. What are you trying to protect children from here? Literacy, because that's what you're protecting them from. When you talk about parental choice, are you trying to say that children won't know about homosexuality unless they read it in a book? That's ridiculous. So the ability to access high quality materials that teachers are keeping in their classrooms is a vital, important part of education. When you talk about parental choice, let me tell you, I am a parent. I am an involved parent. My choice should matter just as much as yours or anyone else's. I want my children, my choice for my children is for them to be able to peruse books and to be able to read them. I want my children's teachers to be allowed to have personal libraries without cumbersome legislation to make it almost impossible for them to do so. I would like to have the choice to have teachers that are treated as the professionals that they are. We continually talk about the teacher shortage, and one of the many reasons that we have a teacher shortage is because they're treated like children instead of the professionals that they are. I want to have, you know what else? I would like the choice to have my children be challenged by views that I don't necessarily agree with, because that's how you grow. I'm happy to have a conversation about that with them, something that I don't agree with. And I will say this, we have already been told tonight that the board is trying to distance itself from the fact that book fairs aren't happening this year. But let me tell you this, Moms for Liberty and anyone who generally agrees with this legislation 146 or 43-170, this new state regulation, you are directly responsible, directly. And I want everyone who is listening to this to know, you don't have to vote straight party. Vote for the Republican Party until you get down there to the Department of Education. Get these people out. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Alicia Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me the floor. My name is Alicia Taylor, and I am the parent of an autistic first grader in Greenville County Schools. He's been prescribed applied behavioral analysis therapy to reduce behaviors and teach critical skills by a medical doctor. So ABA therapy is an evidence-based therapy that uses positive reinforcement. It's 100% paid by my private insurance. My son works with licensed professionals under the supervision of licensed professionals who undergo multiple background checks to work with a vulnerable population. Except that my son isn't permitted to have access to his medically prescribed ABA therapy while he is at school at GCS. This is extreme negative consequences for him and our family, as well as other families in Greenville County and across the state. My son is in first grade, he's 6. In the first 11 school days this year, he's been suspended twice at 6. I don't know how suspending an autistic first grader or any first grader teaches them the skills they need and critical goals, other than maybe they can continue to act up and go home. which is not what we want to teach. As a parent, I shouldn't have to choose between my child's educational needs and their medical therapy that they need also. He's been very successful having access to his ABA therapist who's worked with him successfully for 3+ years. We've had no incidents, nothing suspended behaviors, while he's had access to his ABA therapist during camps over the summer, or camps or any other educational environments where there are 20+ kids. He's now in a class of 17. I'm asking that Greenville County Schools consider and permit access for our children to have their medically prescribed ABA therapists in our schools at parent request. You may be concerned that teachers lose control of their classrooms. I think teachers are gonna like spending less time managing behaviors and more time teaching. You might be concerned that safety, but just like your contractors, your electricians, and other folks, these companies are licensed. They have insurance, liability, undergo regular background checks to already work with vulnerable populations. Please help our children. Please, 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 and our disabled children to love school and enjoy their education. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Victoria Marino Jackson.
Hi, I'm Victoria, and I'm here to provide feedback on the effects of Regulation 43-170 as it is currently written. It's costing Greenville County Schools approximately $140,000 this year and every year thereafter that we don't have book fairs. The way that is written, it's causing books to be pulled from shelves when there isn't a challenge for the books. And this includes classroom libraries. There have been teachers that have had to get rid of their classroom libraries, which is the most accessible way for students to get their hands on books because they don't have to leave the room to go to the library and they don't have to acquire public transportation to get to a public library, or they don't have to be in a family that has a car. It's also forcing librarians and teachers to waste time on administrivia instead of doing the things that they've gone to school for a long time and love doing, which is passing along a love of reading and learning and caring for our students. I moved here less than 2 months ago. I was already really afraid of moving to one of the lowest ranked states in public education. Little did I know that once I got here, that I and my children would have freedoms taken away from us regarding choice of reading and learning. I don't think that's the way to go about improving the rank of the state. Sorry. I want my children and me to have the choice without the state getting in the way of deciding what materials grow their minds and increase their relationships and compassion about people who move about this world. I have to believe that you can do better than this. I ask you, take this regulation back, research more before you pass another one on what the impact of the regulation is on the ground, on the schools, on the librarians, on the families. I ask you to create an appeal process. The process is mystically shrouded behind a curtain right now. We don't know which books are banned. We don't know what the process is that they go through, who's looking at them, and we don't know how to get them back. And I ask that you write better legislation that doesn't pull our public school system further down the ladder than it already is. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Noah Heinz.
Hi, my name is Noah Heinz. I'm a Greer resident, and I'm going off script of other speakers tonight. I'd like to say a few words of caution about the national rating system that was discussed and I think proposed last session for two reasons. The first is that we as parents don't need more opportunities to abdicate responsibility in raising our children. We need less. We allow the internet to teach and entertain our kids through TV and smartphones because we're too tired or we've had a long day. We allow so-called experts who've never met our kids to make recommendations on the health of our kids, even though there's not necessarily the data to back up what they're trying to push, and they could be financially supported by groups that profit from what they're pushing. A board like this would once again give an excuse for parents to not be as invested in their kids and what their kids are reading. You can call it book banning, indoctrination, whatever you like, but parents should know what their kids are reading so that they're prepared to have discussions and also prepared to help their kids understand what they're reading. This knowledge should extend into knowing what their kids are not going to be exposed to that their kids are not going to be exposed to material that is not suitable for the age of their child. The second reason that I come to this conclusion is, why would I want an unelected board with representation from places that I may not ever go to or know where they're at, and includes people who don't have my child's best interest at heart to determine what can and can't be allowed in classrooms and the school libraries. These decisions should be made by the elected officials in that district so that there are actions that can be taken if parents feel a wrong decision is made. While I agree that the decision in June to remove the book from the school library and not the public library for questionable content, you saw how much pushback parents had just from removing it from a school library, and possibly rightfully so. But imagine how much worse that pushback would be and how much more your hands might be tied if it's a national board that's full of experts in that field who are pushing their own agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Rachel Turner.
Hi, my name is Rachel Turner. I've been a teacher for 28 years, 24 of those here in Greenville County, and I've loved every minute of it. And so now I'm in a new role as the Future Teacher Academy Specialist for Greenville County Schools, and I'm very, very excited. And I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the new program, and it's an effort to recruit young people into the teaching profession. And so essentially, it is a 3-tier program where students begin their sophomore year in high school with an honors level class that's an introduction to all things in education. During their junior and senior years, the students have an opportunity to take 4 dual enrollment credit classes in education through Clemson University for 12 hours of college credit. They spend well over 150 hours working in the field with a teacher in a local school, and they are college career ready. They have a CTE completion for a completed pathway for education and work-based learning credit. All 15 high schools right now have at least 1 tier of the program, and over the years we're hoping to increase that in every high school as a part of my new job. We've also established a Future Teacher Academy Leadership Board. I have a couple of representatives here with us tonight. Our schools have elected emerging leaders from the junior class. We have 14 students on the board right now representing 7 different schools, and we do this in collaboration with public education partners. So we are working with Keena Jennings and Catherine Schumacher at PEP to mentor these future leaders. We have a 4-fold purpose: to prepare future leaders, to provide deeper understanding of the teaching profession, to present opportunities for collaboration and growth, and to promote the profession in a positive light. Over the course of the year, these 14 students will be able to collaborate on a service project get together, participate in a book study. They will take a cultural and diversity tour of the district. They'll visit the State House to see the legislative process when it comes to education policy. They will also be recognized at GCS Teach Night at the Drive, and they're participating in teacher advocacy programs by positively promoting the profession. So if you follow them on Instagram at FTA Leadership Board, you'll see some of the highlights that they are, and the teachers that they're honoring. That's FTA Leadership Board for those who are interested. Of course, we're going to kick off our year next week with the I Teach Conference for Future Educators, which all of you have been invited to, so I hope that some of you will be able to come. We have 500 people participating this year, 300 participants from Greenville County and around 200 from outside districts, so we are very, very excited about that. If I'll ask my 3 students to stand, this is what they'll look like when you come, so you can visit them at the I Teach Conference. We're excited to mentor our future educators as we focus on our FT theme to love first and teach second. So thank you for coming. And that was love first, teach second. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Catherine Schumacher.
I love getting to follow Ms. Turner. So good evening, everyone. I'm here tonight on behalf of the staff and Board of Public Education Partners to recognize an extraordinary Southside high educator who is making a difference not only for her own students but for the future of teaching. Through our work, PEP is proud to elevate teachers with a particular focus on early career educators just coming into the field. And we know that having an experienced mentor, as Ms. Levent as well said, walking alongside a new teacher is enormously helpful for their success. Mentors go above and beyond, adding hours to their classroom duties to meet with their assigned mentee and pour into them their perspective and advice. And we know that the board understands that this work is very important, having increased the stipend for district mentors in recent years. So thank you for that additional support. At the Teacher of the Year breakfast a couple of weeks ago, PEP was honored to sponsor the First Class Teacher Award, celebrating 2 teachers finishing their first year in the classroom. And tonight, we want to take a moment to shine the spotlight on the winner of our First Class Mentor Award. This teacher leader has distinguished herself through a commitment to and excellence in supporting first-year teachers on their journey. Mentors were nominated by their principals and administrative teams with additional input from their mentee. So I wanted to share a couple of highlights from our winner's nomination. This teacher articulates ideas clearly, actively listens to her mentee's concerns, and provides constructive feedback in a supportive manner. She is one of the most approachable people in the building. She instills a passion for lifelong learning in the mentee, encouraging her to seek professional development opportunities and stay updated with best practices. That's just a snapshot of what this award winner pours into her students or her mentee. In early August, Dr. Royster and members of the PEP team surprised our first class mentor with a $250 cash award, a crystal trophy, and a classroom sign, as well as a gift certificate from our generous award sponsor, Oro Hotels, for a free night at the Downtown Hyatt as a special and well-deserved treat. I want to take a second to thank Oro Hotels, the Rama family, and Corporate Director of Communications, Heather Metters-Whitley, for her support. She's a former educator herself. And I want to recognize and thank Julie Woodhouse, who serves as Greenville County Schools Coordinator for Induction, Mentoring, and Teacher Success. She is our partner for everything that we do to support first-year teachers, and she is just an extraordinary, extraordinary friend to our work. With that, I would like to ask our First Class Mentor Award winner, Kathy Bradford, to stand and be recognized. Kathy teaches English. She is an avid instructor. She teaches English and is an avid instructor at Southside High School. She's joined by her principal, Tatiana Shea, and her mentee, Lynn Horton. Congratulations to Ms. Bradford and to all of our first class award winners. It's our privilege to recognize teachers in this district.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mary Ann Sacasa de Strasburg.
First of all, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here today. Congratulations to this wonderful mentor. It was a mentor like her that allowed me to be where I am today. I am a public school Success, if you would discuss it, I come from a single parent home where my mom worked 3 shifts to make ends meet. I had teachers that supported me and brought books to me and told me to do better and be better and told me I could reach for the stars. And due to that, today I'm a board certified emergency medicine physician. It's because of you. It's because of all of you, right? I have 2 children in Blythe Academy, and I have 4 more that will go there eventually. And I am a PTA member and a homeroom mom and a volunteer for our book fair every year. I see every year how those kids come in with their money without figuring out taxes and go and look to those books and see the opportunities of dreaming, of being in adventures, of understanding that there's a world outside. Usually me and some other parents come with a little bag of coins so that they could get more books and not pay for those extra taxes that they did not know about. Taxes are a big deal for a first grader, let me tell you. I see how my son, who's a 3rd grader, was really depressed last year because he won Student of the Month and he did not win Reader of the Month. And do you know why that was important? Because at Blythe, when you win Reader of the Month, you get a free book. It's all for yourself. He has hundreds of books. Have no fear. Books, that's how that's what I love, so they love. But to go and get it from the school, to be recognized, you're reading, and so here, we're motivating you, that is huge. I fear that this law will take away opportunities for our children to dream, to move forward, to understand others, to understand the beauty of thinking outside our box, of our world. We have all different backgrounds in here. We all learn to read, and that's why we're sitting here. But what if we don't know how to read? What if we have a generation that cannot read? Who's going to take care of us? Let's be real, right? I think about our teachers and how they have done so much for each and every one of their students. They have chosen to take a pay cut in many ways to teach the future, to make sure our society continues to succeed. I stand here before you and I ask you to consider the book fair. If you can't, I get it. The law is there, but thank you.
Thank you. Our final speaker is Fanindra Talapragada.
Thank you. I'm not as polished as everyone else is. I just drove back from work, unprepared, not knowing that there would be so many people here. I'm going to talk about a slightly different topic. I'm here to request the board, petition the board, whatever the right words are, to review the admissions criteria to the gifted program in the Charlestown Center. I'm the father of 2 kids in elementary school, and I want to take the example of my first child, who is now in 5th grade, and discuss why I think the criteria are insufficient, right? So to be admitted into this program, a child has to score, I think, in the 96th percentile at the very least, in the MAP exam in reading and writing. My son scored way above the 99th percentile. In every single year he took this test, but could only manage about 92 percentile in reading. I will just illustrate some numbers. I'm a professor of mechanical engineering in Clemson. I love numbers. I like to do statistics. Scores look like the following when you plot them on a graph. It's what we call as a normal distribution, right? So my son scored 266 in his last MAP exam when the average was 206 and the 99 percentile is 240. That puts him in the 99.997 percentile. But he still could not get into the program because his reading was slightly less than the required criteria. I want to drive home the point about what these percentiles mean with a different example. I'm a professor, I can make up examples, right? So normal distributions like this are everywhere. If you look at the IRS income distributions, household distributions, I just jotted down some numbers as I came here. The median household income, which is the 50 percentile in the US in 2023, is about $75,000. To be in the 99 percentile, you have to make about 615,000. To be at the 93 percentile, you have to make about 300 to 350,000, something like what the superintendent would make, right? You would be in the 93, 94 percentile. There's not all that much of a difference between the 93 to the 99 percentile. But guess what 99.999 percentile makes? It's about 80 million. So there is a big difference in being in the 99.99 percentile in any subject, be it reading, be it math, versus being in the 99 or the 98 percentile. I'm a professor in mechanical engineering. You can ask any professor in any engineering, math, physics department in Clemson or any of the universities around us, Georgia Tech, NC State, Virginia Tech, etc. Every professor will tell you that we would like to see better math preparedness in all of our students. We should encourage more math. We should give more emphasis to math scores in these gifted programs admissions. That's all.
Thank Excuse me, I'm going to repeat that. I didn't have on my mic. Our fourth matter of business is the superintendent's report. Dr. Royster, do you have a report for us tonight?
I do, Dr. Stiles.
Okay.
Actually, 3 items. First, though I rarely do this, I can recall one other time doing it in 12 years or more. There were several comments made earlier that I believe I need to address, just so people don't leave with the wrong impression. People who spoke tonight on the matter of book fairs, so forth, we actually provided to them a summary sheet of information about that, but the others in the audience would not have had benefit of that. So I think it's important to note, because clearly by what some people said, there's a misunderstanding of the origin of the regulation that was spoken to. That regulation was not passed by this board, was not adopted by this board. That regulation came from the State Board of Education. So those who wish to speak to the body that adopted that policy should appropriately address those comments to the State Board of Education. That's the fact. This board had nothing to do with adopting that regulation. That regulation binds this board and this school district. The second point that needs to be made is within that regulation, there are penalties that relate to individual actions of individual employees, where the state board may first issue a warning to an employee that violates this regulation. And while a warning may be nothing of much consequence, on a second offense, it does not speak directly to what that sanction may be. However, the State Board of Education basically has 2 abilities to address the employee of a local school district. One would be through reprimand of that individual, and the second would be through their certification, their professional certification. Either the suspension of that certification or the revocation of that certification. There has yet been no action taken by the State Board of Education under this regulation towards an employee or a school district. Therefore, there is no precedent of what action they might take. If you want to see what action the State Board takes in cases regarding educators, you can go to the State Department of Education's website and you can see every decision they have ever rendered regarding the revocation or suspension of an educator's certificate. It's a matter of public record. So if you were contemplating taking some action that might result in that, you could read through that and see, well, that might likely cause my certificate to be suspended. That effectively ends that person's professional career, either temporarily or permanently. Now, would they take that action? We don't know. So we have.
Excuse me, there will be no interruptions in the audience. Thank you.
We have an obligation to protect our employees, not to use them to call someone's bluff. We have an obligation to protect them. The current conduct of book fairs exposes some of our employees to possible sanctions by the State Board of Education. It's our responsibility to provide protection to those employees. They brought those concerns forward to us. No one has canceled a book fair in this district. We have paused those book fairs. Don't intend to be interrupted again.
I would like to speak for just a moment. We have allowed time for speakers. Now it's time to allow time for the board members here on the dais as well as our superintendent. And we need to be respectful of that. And this will be the last warning. And anybody who interrupts Dr. Royster again during this speech will be asked to leave. So please remember that, and please let's respect each other and be considerate of each other's time. We were considerate when all the speakers were up there, and we expect the same courtesy. Thank you.
We have paused those book fairs to provide time for us to have discussions with the 12 to 15 vendors that conduct the book fairs. For one, they cannot currently assure us of the titles of the books they will send. So any employee that's involved in that process may place themselves in jeopardy by putting out book titles that they've had no opportunity to vet. So the actions we've taken exist right now to protect our employees. We're all dealing with an unknown environment. This is new. But it is incumbent upon us to follow the regulation and to protect the employees that are charged with teaching our students, providing library and media services to them, and leading our schools. I would hope that people would understand that and support that. Second item that I have is introduction, new personnel, approved at the special call meeting following the Committee of the Whole, is the appointment of Greg Porter as the Director of School Security, Safety, and Emergency Preparedness. Greg has been serving basically in the number 2 role in that department for the past 2 years, being the district's coordinator of safety and emergency preparedness. He has served as a Marine. He served 14 years with Greenville County Sheriff's Office, including service as a road deputy and a number of positions within the School Enforcement Division of the Sheriff's Office, including SRO, gang investigator, the sergeant and supervisor of a portion of the Sheriff's School Enforcement Unit, overseeing 43 deputies and 60 crossing guards. We're most pleased to announce Greg's appointment. He's done an outstanding job in his role as the number 2 person in the Safety and Security Department, a department that has grown exponentially in the last 10 years in response to the current environment we find ourselves in, and ensuring that we're providing a safe environment for our students and for our employees. Greg, congratulations on your appointment. We appreciate your service currently and look forward to your leadership in this new role. And I believe you have members of your family with you, including another district employee and some students that are closely affiliated with you. Welcome to all of you. Congratulations again, Greg. We often hear, I know it would be surprising to some people that, well, you all had a nice summer off. Well, that's not exactly true. So every year we like to look back briefly at the things that people are doing during the course of the summer to better prepare for the reopening of school in the fall. So if you look at facilities, they completed 7,500 work orders this summer. They replaced 74,737 square feet of flooring. They refinished 145,000 square feet of gym floors. They painted 1.4 million square feet of surfaces, replaced 304,000 square feet of roofing, and performed HVAC system replacements at 5 schools, and continuing with our LED lighting upgrades and replacement, replaced LED lighting in 790,716 square feet. Reconditioned 5 tracks, reconditioned 5 tennis courts, reconditioned asphalt paving at 2 schools, and reconditioned 15 middle school athletics courts. We completed and occupied additions at Ellen Woodside, Fort Shoals, Mountain View, Simpsonville, Sioux Cleveland. We are in progress at Woodland and in progress with a 1,000-seat addition at Fountain Inn High School, and the construction of the new elementary Reedy Laurel is also in progress with the opening date for next fall. All three of those projects in progress are moving in accordance with their timeline. Held Custodial College, 645 employees with 3 days of training. Transportation, recertified 650 drivers, aides, and subs, conducting 3,900 total training hours. Qualified 31 drivers and 12 coaches with CDL licenses and bus driver certifications. Did special needs transportation training for 16 bus aides and 31 drivers. Reviewed 1,877 runs and routes and made adjustments to them. Made 28,043 calls to parents to inform them of bus stops, locations, and times, and routed 31,673 students for transportation. Food and Nutrition Services conducted Serve Safe training for 132 employees, 4,032 hours. Conducted back to school in-service training for 164 managers, 656 hours. Served 142,631 summer meals. ETS had submitted and closed 6,313 help desk tickets, reviewed 750 technology-related requisitions, completed installation of a cellular wireless backup at schools for mission-critical data, Power School, email, and the school phone systems, 100% complete. 100% completion of Wi-Fi replacement project in all schools, and continued finishing out the replacement of all voice over IP phone systems in the district. Initiated 113 new education applications in ClassLink, printed 91,963 ID badges, continued implementation of state-mandated EdFi, which is a state data warehousing system, and placed into service 76,698 Chromebooks. Human Resources staffed Alexander and Lakeview, the Elevate schools, with 154 employees, not including hourly positions. Placed 157 classified and 199 certified employees from previously ESSER-funded positions into other existing positions vacant in the school district through attrition, employee exit for various reasons. processed 986 hires, conducted 43 new employee orientation sessions, did orientation for 18 international teachers, and did substitute system Smart Find training for 150 employees. In finance, they initiated and printed 5,689 teacher supply checks, conducted benefits retirement enrollment for new staff, 1,016, did benefits transfers processing for 208 individuals, processed 209 employee retirements, loaded 20,740 general fund accounts with the FY24 budget numbers, and conducted 5,844 calculations for new hourly rates for 28 salary schedules. Staff and leadership development, you've seen a detailed breakdown of this at the Committee of the Whole, but conducted 805 sessions for 18,521 participants in professional learning. Conducted Year 1 Induction Institute, that's for first-year teachers, for 243, and Year 2 for 260, who is their second year, last year having been their first. 15-day GATE Teacher Institute with coaches, there were 66 participants. Trained 114 new teacher mentors. Trained teachers and administrators to observe and evaluate teachers, 128 individuals. Prepared new principals and mentors, 9. New AP mentors prepared, 31. Conducted strengths-based leadership assessment, 12 leadership individuals and 5 faculty members. Cohort development for lead, principal induction, and executive leader institute. Safety and security, we added 3 Evolve systems to conduct school induction and random searches. Had 170 teachers and administrators trained in active shooter scenarios, partnering with Greenville County Sheriff's Office. 130 district emergency response team members participated in district emergency response team reunification training. Monitored the compliance of 12,000 employees completing online active shooter training tailored to their positions. Replaced the use of handheld metal detectors at alternative programs with MetroSense metal detection system. Superintendent's Leadership Summit, we conduct every year with district leadership and principals. We had 162 individuals in attendance. You see there the primary points of that program. We continued our efforts to strengthen leadership teams at the school and district level, leveraging individual strengths and refining strategic and operational leadership. Indicating to our leadership team, we're Team Greenville County Schools. We invest in people and processes for quality decisions and action. We connect to gain and share perspective. We empower through communication and capacity building. We maximize potential in every student. These are the things that district employees, district leadership, district administration were involved in over the summer to ensure that we are on a path of continuous improvement and continuous quality as we provide services to our students and our community. Thank you, Dr. Stiles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Royster. That was very impressive. Quite a lot accomplished over the summer, and we appreciate everyone who participated and made all those accomplishments. Our next 6 items are going to be action items, and our first action item is 5.01, revision of board policy KNBA, complaints about instructional materials. We have a recommended motion from the Committee of the Whole to approve revisions to board policy KNBA as contained in version 2. This does not require a second. Any discussion? Mr. Cochran?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I move to amend the motion by striking out the words, schools will create a panel of 7 individuals at the school level to review concerns communicated by parents and guardians, The panel is selected by the school principal, will consist of an administrator, the media specialist, a teacher, a representative from the academics department, and 3 parents or members of the support organizations of the school, such as PTA or SIC. Parents, guardians who wish for this panel to review their concerns shall complete the school level review form attached to this policy. See Exhibit 2, Panel Review Form. The panel shall review the instructional material to determine if it is educationally suitable as contained in Section 3 of this policy and respond to parents or guardians in writing within 21 days of the communicated concerns. A decision by the panel to remove in its entirety or to restrict instructional material by grade level will be considered by the superintendent or designee in determining whether the material should be removed or restricted throughout the district. From Section 4 of the revisions to Board Policy KNBA as contained in Version 2.
We have a recommended amended motion from Mr. Cochran. Mr. Cochran, just to clarify, you read the amended motion as well as other information, am I correct?
The part that I would like to strike out is the part that I was reading. It comes from Section 4. It deals with the panels. And I have a copy of it if I can bring it to you that I was reading from, but it comes from Section 4.
That would be excellent. Yes. Does anybody need to hear that again, that amended motion?
Yeah. No, I don't know what the motion is.
Okay.
He's wanting to strike, and that's it.
He's wanting to strike a section. Mr. Cochran, the number of the section here, can you tell me? There's no number
Section
here.
4.
Right, it's
Section 4.
I have that down at the end of it, down at the bottom there. That's
Okay.
listed. But,
Okay, yes, from Section 4 of the revisions to Board Policy KNBA.
but if we could bring that up on the screen.
That would be great. Miss Fitzer, if you could get that on the screen for us.
The whole section. He wants to strike the whole section. I'm just trying to understand. Or he wants to replace it.
Middle part section.
Mr. Cochran, there seems to be some need for clarification. Can I ask you to clarify that again? There seems to be some confusion.
It is in Section 4. Section 4 starts out with basically information that is coming from the state as part of their new regulation. It also ends with that. But the middle of Section 4 is the part that is pertaining to the panels, which is not something that is included in the state regulation, but it is at this point in our proposed policy. And of course, I think anyone that's been to the ad hoc committee meeting or the committee of the whole meeting recently is certainly not surprised that from my previous comments that I certainly have quite a few issues with the panel portion of this based on our dealings with the committee process we had in our previous policy. But so it's that middle section of Part 4 there, Section 4.
That's it on the screen.
Right, and so once again, it begins with the sentence that says schools will create a panel. Right, so it begins right there, and it ends with the sentence that basically the last part of it says the superintendent or the designee in determining whether the material should be removed or restricted throughout the district. That's the end of the part that I am proposing to be struck out there.
Hey, Mr. Cochran has made an amended motion. And we have viewed on the screen the part that he would like to strike. We have a second from Ms. Leventis Wells. We have an opportunity for discussion. Mrs. Bush.
Yes. I will agree with Mr. Cochran that we had extensive discussion about this and the clarity at the committee of the whole about this panel and whether it should be in place or whether it should not be in place. And this amendment essentially takes that panel away. And I just want to confirm the information that we got at the committee of the whole was that the principals wanted to be a part of having a school level to where there would be input from the school. I think we've had a lot of discussion about making sure that people have a level of input at their school and that it is not coming from Columbia or coming from the district office, that this would be the only opportunity they would have at that level for a SIC parent, a PTA parent, a media specialist, or the principal himself to have input into whether the book should carry on in this process of when a book is challenged. Am I not right, Dr. Oyster?
Yes, ma'am. Now, I think it's not necessarily clear, but if an item was presented to a principal and it was blatantly obvious that that violated the regulation, the principal could remove that. That panel provides a group of people to provide input, to make a decision. Ultimately, that's a school level decision. And having gotten that input, it would still be then up to that principal to make the final call on that decision. Then that's to be reviewed by the superintendent or the superintendent's designee. I would caution you that if you remove the panel, you remove the way that was written, you would remove any opportunity for review beyond the school level. So that's just something for you to consider if you remove everything that I just saw highlighted as you contemplate that motion. But yes, as I think, having been a principal, I wanted the opportunity to weigh in at decisions at the school level.
Thank you. I think as we've discussed here tonight, and we've heard from a lot of people in the audience, that you don't like someone else, from whether it's from the district office or whether it's from the Department of Education or whether it's from Columbia or Washington. We all want to feel like in the process that our school had some say or some participation in anything that's going to be affecting our students and our community. So thank you, Dr. Royster. That's all.
Thank you, Ms. Bush. Mr. Sailors?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think Dr. Royster's answer to Mrs. Bush's question answered part of my commentary, but just for clarification, this particular section was added at the request of principals at the school level, correct? Did I understand that correctly? Dr. or Doug?
Yes, sure. So I will summarize, and we discussed this with the principals. The feedback that we received, it was that they were very supportive of that local review opportunity. You know, this language was all in an effort to further define what a good faith effort looks like that was contained in the regulation. That's the verbiage in the regulation, that parents, guardians have to make a good faith effort at the school to resolve their concerns. Well, the question is, what does a good faith effort look like?
Right.
And so this structure was put into place with principal feedback to further define what that good faith effort looked like. So local review, the fact that there's going to be a written record of principals thought that would be helpful. And also the discussion with the principals is that 21 days was a pretty finite, narrow time frame that should still allow an expedited process.
And the 21 days is required by the statute,
21 days was
by the regulation.
Was not in the regulation. That's just part of the structure of the good faith process, of which we have tried to define the good faith effort
Okay,
process.
so this is an operational mechanism to effectively evaluate a book when needed, at the school level, as needed, and if that is removed, then any such review would be kicked to where?
So the concerns could still be raised at the school level with the principal, but essentially after that, unless the superintendent wanted just to quickly remove an item, it would go straight to the Board of Trustees at that point.
So this takes, by the removal of this verbiage, it takes the input and the voice of the local school and their parents out of the equation.
Correct. The parents of the PTA, SIC, who would otherwise be on this panel would not be involved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sailors. Ms. Mosley.
Thank you, Dr. Stiles. I apologize, I missed the committee of the whole meeting due to moving 2 children into college. So, but I was on Zoom that day, so I remember the discussion. So, hypothetically speaking, if we were to remove that language today, what would the process now be? I don't know if that's a Doug question or
Sure, I'll be happy
Dr. Royster
to
question.
take that.
Okay, because I'm just confused about what we would do instead.
So then the process would be, if that language is removed, that the parent would still have to voice the concerns to the school principal. Then the school principal, if it's something obvious, could remove it, could work with academics, could work with the superintendent. But then there would not be that panel process, because what that is designed for is if there's a legitimate question by that principal, it's not obvious, it's not low-hanging fruit, that principal could say, well, I want additional review here. Get the panel together, media specialists, parents, teacher, to sit down and review the book. Within 21 days, the decision will have to be rendered. So essentially, the process would be without that panel. You would have the school level, and then the superintendent could always remove it. That's sort of a safety valve as well, but it would go straight to the Board of Trustees at that time. Now, remember, your policy is structured that when a complaint gets to the Board of Trustees, the request is automatically to the State Board of Education. So, again, this local review process with the panel was thought to be valuable by the school principals, by academics, by the superintendent, and that's the basis for the recommendation.
I would further say, Doug, if you decide to adopt that, you need to do something about the last phrase there. Otherwise, it's ambiguous as to whether, all right, that decision of the principal, now does it go straight to the board and ultimately straight to the State Board of Education? Although you have policies related to the administrative operation and control of employees vested in the superintendent, it lacks clarity in this policy if you remove. I'm not talking about taking out the part about the panel, but you take out that part where it says, well, then the next step would be for it to go from the principal to the superintendent.
Okay.
So I would suggest that you consider that if you adopt this other amendment, to make it clear that it doesn't go straight from the principal to ultimately to the State Board of Education.
Okay.
But we certainly support and recommend the inclusion of the school level panel. If it's clear cut, the principal will decide on their own.
Okay.
But to get input, to get advice, to let others weigh in on that decision.
So the parents that are listed as part of the panel are not the parent that would be filing the appeal or the complaint or the whatever.
That's right. The panel would have all of the concerns, input, feedback from that parent already.
Okay, and so a clarification based on what you said, Dr. Royster. If a parent had a complaint about a book and the principal immediately recognized it was an issue,
yes,
the principal could not convene a panel. He or she could just make the decision
actually
unilaterally.
should not convene a panel, should
okay.
act on it. if it's very clear. Some of them
Okay.
I think are very clear. Others are not so clear.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Ms. Goodwin Caldwell.
Taking this out would be taken away from, we always are taking things away from the schools, but this is giving them the opportunity to be a part of the process, correct?
Correct.
And everybody up there that it says that would be on that panel is an important part of the school. I'm tired of us taking things from the schools, taking the decisions, and it's their school. So the school should be able to give their opinions on what's affecting their school. That panel is the school principal, an administrator, the media specialist, a teacher, a representative from the academics department, and 3 parents or members of the support organizations of the school, such as the PTA and SIC. I think that these people would want to be a part of determining what's in their schools. So taking that out, and we had discussed this in detail at the CAL about it going directly to the state school board of education, bypassing us, because it'll come back down to us anyway. Didn't we discuss that?
It is possible that anything that we request the State Board of Education to review, it could be handed back down to
But we had discussed that we would send it up to them because they made the law. But it would definitely, they would definitely send it back to us. So we need this type of panel. We need this process in this. Let the people at the schools determine what is going to affect their schools. I don't agree with this, taking the panel out. We need, it needs to stay in there. They've given us this law to deal with, and so we need to make sure that our people in these schools are able to deal with it. That's all I've got to say. I'm getting off.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin Caldwell. And I'm going to stop just for a minute, and I'm going to remind the audience. I know some people are new to our audience, have come in since we had our last discussion. Please, it is not a time for applause. It's not a time for comments from the audience. Please remain silent as we have our conversations, and so everyone can hear what is being stated. This is the time for the board to have our discussions, so please refrain from any kind of clapping or noise making or speaking out. We appreciate that very much. Thank you. Our next speaker is Ms. Brett.
Thank you, Dr. Stiles. So I guess kind of reiterate these panels are not chosen ahead of time. These panels are chosen if this book comes up, the principal says, well, it's wishy-washy here, I don't know. That's when this principal would put this panel together, is that right? So it's not like a standing panel, it's at a whim.
Well, I would say, and what we have recommended to principals as a best practice is to have a panel that is ready to go, because you have 21 days really to get this decided. So that is important to have in place. Now, they could add in there a parent or a teacher or something of that nature, but generally have a framework ready to go.
And so will they be soliciting for this panel like at the beginning of the school year, I guess, this year, or how do we know how that looks?
That would be left to the school and to the principal.
Okay, and my other question was answered, so thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brett. Ms. Morrison-Fair?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Since we have found ourselves on such a controversial pathway, I would like to know the rationale for the amended motion. If I can ask the maker of that motion, the rationale for making that motion and eliminating that verbiage.
Mr. Cochran, would you like to speak to that?
Sure, can I go ahead and
Yes, go right ahead.
turn now?
Yes.
So that's great. First of all, principals already have the ability to make these decisions. And we talk about the school level, and we talk about having faith in our teachers. We should have faith in our principals. They get to make these decisions. If the parent feels like it's not the right decision, that parent immediately has the recourse of filing the complaint on the form provided in the state regulation. And it does come to the school board, and as Doug had said a minute ago, it is, of course, as part of our policy as is currently proposed, it will then be sent straight on to the Board of Education. So our principals can make that decision. If we wanted more local input into things, I think instead of sending it on to the state, what we should have done is we should have let the 12 elected representatives on the Greenville County School Board, those folks should be making more of those decisions. But it seems like in that case, well, we're not so concerned about making the local the decisions here locally. As a principal, if it were me, I was a teacher for 31 years, quite a few of them here in Greenville County. I would prefer, instead of having somebody tell me, you have to get a 7-person committee and you have to do this, this, and this, I would prefer that I be given the latitude to ask whoever I want to advise me if I don't feel like this is a decision that I have the time to make to look into this book or this material right now, to pick the people that I have a lot of confidence in and get them to advise me. I don't think we need a 7-person committee. The committee process was clearly not working in relation to the will of the vast majority of this school board and the representatives that were elected by the people of Greenville County regarding the 4 book challenges that just recently came to us in the last few months. In every case, the committee voted either unanimously or nearly unanimously, and I'm talking about the committee that was set up by the district, to keep these books in Greenville County schools. And yet, even though those votes were either unanimous or nearly so, when those book challenges were brought to the school board, in the case of the first book, 90% of the school board members present that night voted to get rid of the book. Book 2, 90% of the board members present voted to get that book out of Greenville County schools. Book 3, 90%. Book 4, 75% of the school board members that were present at that time voted to get rid of that book. So the committee's decisions and the board's decisions were not only different, they were almost completely different. So again, the committee process was clearly not working, and we just saw that this spring. One thing it did do, however, that is the committee process, it used up a lot of people's time. We had at least 10 people, I think, on those committees. That's not counting people at the district level that was having to put together the committees and all these other things. And they were reading books, in some cases, 700, 800 pages long. And so it took up a lot of time. And yet, when that committee came forth with their choice, it was, again, in each case, it was different than what the board, the elected representatives of Greenville County on this board, decided. I think the one difference that I see between the committees we had before and the so-called panels that we have now is at this stage we're wasting slightly fewer people's time. We only have 7 people now that are on these committees and a principal that might have to be involved. Again, no matter how much time they put into this book or this material review, the parent has the right, according to the state regulation, they can immediately, after they get the decision, if they do not agree with the decision, they can immediately appeal it. They would have to fill out another form. one thing I'm also not quite sure of, as part of our panel process that nowhere appears in the state policy, there is a section of the state policy that says a complainant shall file a petition with the school board, the district board, on a form promulgated by the State Department of Education and provided by the State Department of Education to the district board, which the district board shall make readily available on its website, and which is the sole, S-O-L-E, sole form that a district or district board may use for the purposes of compliance with this regulation. It doesn't say this section of the regulation. It says with this entire regulation, the way I read it. And again, we have, as part of our process here for the panels, we have created another form. It is very similar to the state form, but it is not the same as the state form. The parent is going to have to go through the process, it looks to me like, certainly of filling out 2 forms, since we have our own form that we have created along the lines of the state form. Again, we just had those committees a few months ago that were in operation. It's clear they were not working. The only committees that I'm aware of that are mentioned at all in this new state regulation are those in section 4B, where it says that basically, see if I can find that real quick. A district board may, in its discretion and in advance of the meeting described in this subsection, refer the complaint to a committee comprised of at least 3 district board members and whose membership is limited to the district board's members. So again, there's nothing about a panel. There's nothing else in here anywhere. It is the only committee that is mentioned in that entire regulation that I'm aware of is the one that says it must be made up by basically school board members. So that's my rationale. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Back to you, Ms. Morrison-Fair.
Let me see if I can understand what you're saying. Mr. Cochran, you're saying that your justification in eliminating this verbiage is because, in your opinion, you feel like the committees don't work, and you feel as if the principal should be the final say from the beginning, and that there should be no community input at that school level because it is not working basically as you, in your opinion.
Right, and I'm saying based on recent history that we have all seen that it is quite likely, considering the fact that that parent can immediately decide to pass that challenge along to the next level, regardless of what is decided there at the school level. If the school level, if it is decided in a way that the parent does not agree with, they can immediately appeal that. So then, all that time that was spent by those folks on that panel is basically wasted time, because that challenge is now, the way we have our policy set, it's now on its way to Columbia, despite the time and effort that was put in by the panel.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison-Fair. Ms. Middleton.
There's a lot of stuff to think about.
The mic.
Oh, sorry. As far as the panel, did the principals want this panel? Doug?
Yes, we spoke with the principals. They were favorable, receptive to the panel. Again, this would be spread out among 85 schools in theory. So they thought it was reasonable in scope and the structure, and the panel hopefully will not need to be implemented. If a parent brings a concern to a principal, like Dr. Royster said, that principal can remove that book. It's only when there is a true legitimate question regarding the material. So they were receptive to it, favorable, given the structure that's been recommended to you.
So if the principal decides that he's not sure about removing the book, I have to believe that the book is probably not that bad, because we now have some pretty graphic language to help us from the Board of Education that tells us, all these types of books cannot be even considered. So for the principal to decide that he wants to push it to the panel, I feel that the book must be, there could be some discretion there. On the committee situation, the committees did not have the benefit of all the information that we now have from the illustrious DOE that has told us the exact language and all the things that if maybe the committee had had that at the time, there would have been different results. So I don't think we can compare it's kind of apples to oranges in my opinion right now. I also like us having some autonomy, because as a community, we are talking about one, I guess, or a few people that will have a problem with the book and that will bring the book to a principal to be removed. And it would be good to have that panel to really weigh in, because that decision, and we know DOE is probably not going to make they're probably not going to really make a decision on it, because they'll probably kick it back to us. They're going to make a decision would be made on very few people, and this would be for the whole school system. So it's a pretty big thing, right? It's a pretty big thing, because probably if the book gets to the panel, it's probably going to be, I don't think it's going to be like the books that that we saw before. I think it's going to be closer to more a classic kind of book, or more, may have some problems, but it's not going to be like totally, graphic.
There is
I hope.
There is some very specific language in that regulation, and there is ambiguous language in this regulation. So when you have a complaint that falls into the more ambiguous language, provides that principal with the opportunity to bring some people in and say, look at this, here's the regulation, where do you believe it falls? If the parent's not satisfied with that, send it to us, or if we agree or don't agree, they can go beyond that. The question came up regarding the authority to place this in part of this process, and I believe the authority is based, Mr. Webb, on the very opening paragraph of Section 4, which places upon the parent or legal guardian an expectation by this regulation that they have made a good faith effort to address their concerns regarding non-compliance with this regulation with school level or district level staff. Well, operating 96 school locations, we need to have a process or a procedure so that we don't have 96 processes or procedures. So working with the principals, working with academics, Mr. Webb drafted this to put some process in place, clearly allowing the principal to make the decision if it's immediately obvious that this violates the regulation, and basically providing them a panel of people involved and engaged in the school from both the school and the school community to put multiple sets of eyes on it to offer up, well, we believe this does violate the regulation, or we believe it doesn't. And it's simply a tool to help them, their decision making, and to provide some level of involvement at the school community level for parents, for the school staff, to give input to the principal. Again, if it's clear cut, there'd be no need to convene that panel. And many of these things appear to me to be very clear cut, and there are others that are not. Having seen some, I can tell you they are not that clear cut.
Thank you, Dr. Royster. Ms. Middleton, does that conclude your questions?
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. President.
I had questions. Some of them have gotten answered. But just to reiterate, first of all, thank you, Dr. Royster, for your clarification that you provided over the genesis of this regulation, where it came from. And anyone can correct me if I'm wrong. It was generated from the State Department of Education, approved. And then from there, Mr. Webb or Ms. Horton, y'all help me out. Once those regulations go into effect, then what do school districts have to do?
It went from the administration of the State Department of Education, so from the state superintendent, to the State Board of Education. State Board of Education approved it as a regulation. All agency regulations in South Carolina are subject to a legislative review. There is a clock that runs on that legislative review. And if an action is not taken within that tolling period, the regulation then goes into effect. The legislative session ran out before the tolling clock expired. I believe, Julie, in years past, as a part of the sine die resolution that they typically do every year, which allows him to come back and do things after the adjournment of the session. If there are unreviewed regulations, they would put them in sine die resolution, then be able to address them when they returned, generally in June. For whatever reason, that did not happen. Therefore, when the session ended, the regulation de facto went into effect. So that's the history of the implementation and the development of the regulation that we are obviously required to follow.
And however that happened, it's ours now. So once it comes to us, it is the responsibility of a school district and its board members to figure out how to put it into policy, how we put that into policy. My constituents have been very vocal since last week with me. Everything from concerned grandmothers who would go to lunch at schools with their grandchildren and then go to the book fairs and purchase books, to parents who have questions about this. The ongoing conversation has been from teachers and the burden that this has created, as well as administrators, okay? And one of the terms that has come up on social media multiple times, and I love a good idiom, is throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Y'all know the old story on that, where that came from, right? When the families back in the day would bathe every now and then, they'd start with the oldest, the dad, and they'd go all the way down until finally the bathwater was so dirty that they would lose the baby possibly, right? Or that's what they would say. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Well, this, for the most part, 43170 is dirty bathwater, y'all. Let's call it what it is, okay? It was made murky by the hands that created it, whether intentionally or unintentionally or carelessly or because somebody wasn't paying attention. But this is dirty bathwater. Now, the one thing that it does provide us with is the 1615, I forget the numbers, 305, which is the, I mean, if it's genitalia, it's in here, it's mentioned numerous times, and it tells you what you can and what you can't do with it, okay? That's gonna take care of probably 95% of a lot of the stuff in those 4 books that we went one way and went the other. I want to talk about the difference in the committees and their charge, okay? Because it's so important that we know that. Those committees that were set forward initially, they didn't have this level of specificity. They didn't have 1615 305, okay? So that put them essentially in a turbine. Okay, we have this now. We have this. It's gonna, when we talk about time and when we talk about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, the warning that goes along with that is don't make hasty decisions. Take time to consider, pull people together to determine what steps you should take in moving forward. So at the level of review that we're at now, okay, we're beyond, and some folks have relied on that heavily, okay? You can Google the number of times an F word is used in a book. Whoop, it should go out the door, right? We're beyond that now. We're talking about higher level things, and it requires multiple perspectives. I have a hard time saying that our administrators in Greenville County School District are not equipped to convene a panel at the school level to have a robust discussion that is then going to be shared with Superintendent Royster. We owe our parents and our stakeholders, I mean, we talk all the time about parental involvement. We owe that to our parents at the school level, our teachers, our media specialists at the building level, who are the hands-on, the boots on the ground with our children, with the ones that are hidden in the bathwater right now, quite honestly. I could not in good faith wipe that out of what Superintendent Royster and all of his folks who have been trying to see through this since it went into effect and make sense of it for it to be in the best interest of our students. I can't in good faith just wipe that away and say that we all of a sudden say that at the building level, not so much. We kick it straight to the State Department of Education. Y'all, curriculum has historically been a local level decision. And we in Greenville County Schools don't want to hang on to that and continue to embrace it for our children, our nearly 80,000 children, and to kick it on to the next level. I can't agree with that. I had a couple of questions. I think they've been answered. Thank y'all for all of your time.
Thank you so much, Dr. Presley. Ms. Mosley.
Thank you. I'm sorry. I've got a few more clarifications I need. So, Doug, if we go forward and the panels are created and they go through and they don't like the result of the panel, is there an appeal process for that?
Yes.
Okay.
The appeal process would be for unless the superintendent wished to remove the book, would be to file a complaint form, the complaint form Exhibit 3, which would trigger the formal complaint process.
So to Dr. Presley's point, when this regulation, regardless of the result of it, when it came down and we have to align our policy with the regulation, I feel like when you were explaining the reason you created it this way, you emphasized good faith effort a lot. I heard Dr. Royster emphasize it again. So just for my own benefit, is there a reason legally, or is there a reason that you felt like, I don't even know how to ask this question, that you felt like this needed to be the process because it fell within this good faith effort definition, for lack of better?
Well,
Does that make sense?
To be candid, when I first saw this regulation and read through it, I had a concern of what is the definition of a good faith effort by the parent guardian to resolve the concerns? What does that look like at each school? And how do we give guidance to that process to the principal and to the schools? And so, as Dr. Royster mentioned earlier, and I mentioned earlier, and I mentioned a lot, like you said, at Committee of the Whole, the panel process is an attempt to define that good faith effort and that process between, and it's almost a collaboration of sorts between the parent guardian and the principal. And if the principal thinks it's a close call or a question, that principal can convene that panel. And that's just in furtherance of that good faith process.
And I remember, thank you, and I remember, even though I was on Zoom that day, a lot of conversation was about not wanting to create a policy that burdened the administrators of the building. And what I'm hearing you say tonight is that this was this whole thing was discussed with the principals, and they're receptive to the policy that was created without a whole lot of pushback.
No pushback.
No pushback. Okay, so if we moved forward with the way it's written, and we get 6 months into it, and we decide, you know what, this sounded great on paper, but maybe it's not working as we had hoped. Do we have the opportunity to tweak it?
Yes.
Okay, so voting on it as is tonight does not change the ability for us to make a different decision later down the road.
That's correct.
Okay, which by then we may have more clarification or something else from the state.
There are provisions in the policy that you would not have discretion on, but there are some that you would, and yes, you could change those.
Okay, well, since I came on the board, every time a parent calls me with a concern, it has been drilled into me as a board member that we need to emphasize that they should first always start at the school level. And without exception, they should always try to get resolution at the school level. I feel like this policy is consistent with that message. So I'm actually okay with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Back to you, Mr. Sailors.
Madam Chairman, all my questions have been answered, so I think that most anybody in this room can see that we've all taken a position, so I call for the question.
Excuse me, Mr.
I'm calling the question, which means we stop debate and we take a vote on the amendment on the floor.
Okay. All right.
And
Mr. Webb, what do you want to comment on that?
Just for the process to close debate would require a 2/3 vote. And so that is the initial vote, is whether to call the question and close debate.
How many speakers do you still have?
You'll have 2 speakers. Okay, so my step would be to vote on whether we want to call the question, Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Okay,
And it's, again, a 2/3 vote.
all right. All in favor of calling the question, say aye.
That's for a show of hands.
Let's do a show of hands to make sure we get a correct count. Okay,
This essentially stops debate and we vote on the amendment.
yes, we're getting, yes.
Does that mean we're cutting people off from not asking questions?
Yeah. Well, who hasn't spoken other than Mrs. Doolin?
Some people have spoken 2 or 3 times.
Correct.
And some haven't.
All right. Ms. Fortner, everyone's voice should be heard. Well, let's raise our hands high and let Ms. Fortner give a count for all who want to call the question. And that means end the debate.
You don't have 2/3, so it fails. Move on.
Okay, all right, that failed, so we're gonna go back to the discussion. Ms. Leventis Wells is next, but she has requested to go last. If that's acceptable with you, Mr. Cochran, is that acceptable with you? Okay, Ms. Leventis Wells. Excuse me, Mr. Cochran, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I know Mr. Webb mentioned earlier about the principals basically seem to be receptive to it and favorable to the panels. I think my only concern about that would be, from having been a teacher for 31 years, if somebody comes from the district and they have a plan and they rolled it out in a faculty meeting for teachers and they ask for comments, typically what would happen is 3 or 4 people would stand up and speak in favor of whatever it was that the person from the district had brought to them. However, if that person from the district had followed the teachers down the hallway as they were going back to their classrooms, or perhaps it's the end of the day a lot of times for those meetings, so as the teachers make their way to the parking lot, what you would have found out in the parking lot is a totally different situation from what you would find from the 2 or 3 people that were willing to speak at the faculty meeting, because basically teachers, again, teachers have families usually, and they just feel like they cannot afford to be on the bad side of the district. And I think the same thing applies to quite a few of our principals. My interpretation of as someone said a minute ago, I think Mrs. Mosley, about the good faith effort that's been mentioned several times. My interpretation of a good faith effort on the part of the parent is, if it's a teacher and that has some material and the parent has an issue, they call the teacher and talk to them. And if the teacher says, no, for this reason, I believe that it should stay, and the parent doesn't agree, then they contact the principal. And the principal at that point has the opportunity to get rid of the material for that school, or they can choose to keep it. And again, if the parent at that point, in my mind, and I think the mind of most folks, that's pretty well a reasonable faith effort. For all other problems that we have in the school, generally, that's the process. Generally, you would talk to the teacher first, and if the parent still doesn't agree, then they talk to the principal. And we follow that. That is followed day in, day out in our schools here in Greenville County. And again, I can say that from having been a teacher for all those years. The last thing I would like to say, if we did remove this, it was mentioned earlier about the last sentence of Part 4 not dovetailing with what would be left. I disagree. That last sentence, when it says see Exhibit 3, the complaint form, and it talks about that the parent would basically fill out that form, that is the state form. That is not our Greenville County form. That is the state form. So the Greenville County form, of course, if that were what it was referring to, that would be different. Then it would have to come out, but that's actually the state form. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. Ms. Leventis Wells.
Thank you, Dr. Stiles. I'll make it short. I agree with just about everybody that has spoken. Everybody has a great opinion of what we should and shouldn't do. And the idea of we could address this if it doesn't work in 6 months, if the panels don't work in 6 months. Well, y'all, we already dealt with that already. The panels did not work with us. And we were going to redo the policy. And now we're looking at the exact same thing, except we're moving it to the schools. And when the principal has the choice to remove the book if he feels so, he has the right to talk to the teacher and get her opinion, and to ask the English department or the science department or whatever. It's the use of having another panel. It's not, I'm sorry, and thank you. So my thing is, I think we need to walk away from these panels, give the principal the right to make the decision. If he doesn't feel that he can, then he passes it on to the district. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Leventis Wells. Last call for questions. Okay, we have an amended motion from Mr. Cochran. It's displayed for you on the screen. It has been duly seconded.
Chair, could we have a roll call vote on this,
Yes,
please?
Ms. Fortner, will you do a roll call vote, please? So this will be for all who is in favor of the amended motion.
Ms. Brett?
Wait, point of order. After we vote, if this doesn't pass, we return to the original version to vote on? Okay, thank you.
Brett? Ms. Bush? No. Mr. Cochran?
Yes.
Ms. Doolin? No. Ms. Goodwin-Caldwell?
No.
Ms. Leventis Wells? Ms. Middleton?
No.
Ms. Morrison Fair?
No.
Ms. Mosley?
No.
Dr. Presley?
No.
Mr. Sailors?
No.
Dr. Stiles?
No.
10-2.
10-2, the amended motion fails. Now we'll go back to the original motion. And the original motion is to, give me just a second. We have a recommended motion from the Committee of the Whole to accept. Let me pull it up and read it. Give me just one moment.
On the board, ma'am.
Okay, we have a recommended motion to approve the revisions to Board Policy KNBA as contained in version 2. This does not require a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion?
We have a roll call vote once again, please.
Yes, sir. Ms. Fortner, we do a roll call vote.
Brett? Ms. Bush?
Yes.
Mr. Cochran?
Without the revisions, no.
Ms. Doolin? Ms. Goodwin Caldwell?
Yes.
Ms. Levinas Wells?
No.
Ms. Middleton?
Yes.
Ms. Morrison Fair?
Yes.
Ms. Mosley?
Yes.
Dr. Presley?
Yes.
Mr. Sailors?
Yes.
Dr. Stiles?
Yes.
10-2.
The vote is 10-2. The motion carries. Our next action item is 5.02, property acquisition for Northwest Middle School replacement. We have a recommended motion from administration. Dr. Royster, would you like to speak?
Yes, ma'am. Dr. Stiles, just for the record, the property acquisition, I need to recuse myself from participating in that. As I mentioned in the Committee of the Whole and mentioned when this first came before the board, one of my college roommates is one of the developers associated with this property. It would not be appropriate for me to be involved in any part of the acquisition or the discussion, so I'll recuse myself.
Thank you, Dr. Royster.
Oh, and I should also note I have no financial interest in any of it.
Thank you for sharing.
Maybe you gonna make the motion?
Madam Chairman,
Yes.
I gladly and excitedly and proudly and at long last make the motion to approve the agreement of purchase and sale of 29.22 acres of property necessary for the replacement of the existing Northwest Middle School, contingent upon the administration effectuating the post-closing agreement with the seller.
Second the motion, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. We have a motion from Ms. Bush. We have a second from Mr. Sailors. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our third,
Will be there at midnight with shovels to break ground, right? Thank you. Thank you.
we're so excited for Northwest Middle. Ms. Bush and I both are celebrating that. Our third action item is 5.03, selection of electrical engineering firms to provide professional services. We have a recommended motion from the Committee of the Whole to approve firms 1 and 2 to provide electrical engineering professional services for the school district. This motion does not require a second. Any discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our next action item is 5.04, selection of mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineering firms to provide professional services. We have a recommended motion from the Committee of the Whole to approve the highest ranked 5 firms to provide mechanical, electrical, plumbing, engineering, professional services for the school district. Any discussion about this? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our fifth action item is 5.05, Duke Energy Carolinas LLC perpetual utility easement at A.J. Wittenberg Elementary School. We have a recommended motion from the Committee of the Whole to approve the requested perpetual utility easement at A.J. Wittenberg Elementary. This does not require a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our sixth action item is 5.06, physical education exemptions. We have a recommended motion from administration. Do I have a maker of the motion?
Madam Chairman, I move to approve the physical education exemptions for one student at Malden Middle School and one student at Beck Academy and one student at Brushy Creek Elementary as presented.
Mr. Sailors has made a motion. Mrs. Mosley has made a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. The motion carries. Our next action item is 6.01, committee liaison reports. Would anyone like to share the work of their committee tonight?
Chairman.
Mr. Sailors?
I'd like to give a brief update on the advocacy committee, and it does tie into some of our conversation earlier this evening. Members of the committee have been informed, and you'll notice on your board schedule for September the 17th, when we will have our next committee of the whole meeting, I'm calling an advocacy committee meeting an hour prior. After having consultation with the superintendent and with Ms. Horton, we're working on a resolution to send to the General Assembly, asking that when it comes to the regulation with which we have been discussing this evening, that book fairs be set aside as a carve-out. Now, that's not a quick fix, but it is a first step to getting there. So it is our intention and hope that the advocacy committee will get a draft of this resolution prior to that meeting. We'll discuss it at that meeting, and if it passes at the advocacy committee meeting, it will immediately be put on the committee of the whole agenda for the next day, and then in turn passed on to this board meeting the following week. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing, Mr. Sailors. Our final action item is 7.01. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry. Yes.
Yes, please let me add and bring everyone's attention to our regional advocacy committee meetings. There was an additional site added, and that site will be in Pickens County Career and Technical Center. Before, it was in Fort Mill, and that was a burden, I guess, for a lot of people in upstate to make that meeting, so they have added an additional site. We would love to see everyone on this board at their regional meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our final action item is 7.01, financial report. This item is for information only. Do we have any questions or discussion? Okay, hearing none, this concludes our agenda. Again, thank you for your presence this evening. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Mrs. Doolin has made a motion to adjourn. Ms. Goodwin-Caldwell has made the second. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The motion carries. We are adjourned at 9:11. Have a great night.